Thank you for watching segment 3 of Living the Max Life 365 with our special guest, Pastor Anthony Rodriguez, speaking on his journey of redemption. And afterwards, please hang on, I got a special song by Steve Gray entitled So Good. And after that, there'll be a special poetry reading. So please hang on, and I appreciate you watching, again, Living the Max Life 365. Thank you. So this conversation is going very well, and I appreciate your openness to discuss these issues, and I think they're important. You know, I started this program, Living the Max Life 365, back in about 2005, and for me, it was born out of pain. You know, I started writing books and poetry in response to my father and my brother's death, and you know, I'll probably bring a lot more talking about that in future videos and things, but we're never going to achieve our purpose or even find out what it is without going through what I call the crucible.
Yeah.
And that is that one thing that you can't escape, you can't get around it, you're going to have to go through it, you know. And sometimes the crucible we put ourselves in, because we know it's the only thing that's going to change, is to stop running from the fight and accept that fight and get into it, because we know we got to win it in order to exist. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
To find a truer expression of ourselves. If we don't stand up to that fight, if we don't accept responsibility for our lives once and for all, you know what I mean? We can be lost forever. There's a lot of people out here, like they say, the most music, the most wealth is in the graveyard, unexpressed.
That's right.
And I'm very thankful that you have accepted God's grace and His redemption. You know, one thing about getting locked up, that is the crucible. Because
Yeah.
when you got cuffs on you, and like you said, when they hit that gavel, you can't get around that.
No.
There's no more faking it. There's no more getting around it. There's no more, you know, trying to negotiate with it. It is what it is, and now you come face to face with all your mistakes, with all the mess. And you know, one thing about your story is I know for a fact, remember one time we were sitting on a wooden bench outside the church, and I told you, I said, Aunt, bro, if you don't turn back now, you're going to lose everything but your family. And sooner or later, if you don't turn back even then, sooner or later, you'll lose them too. And at the time, Caleb wasn't born at that time. Your son, who's now 4, came later. And I know that must have been one of the hardest things, to be in prison and not being able to watch him grow up and not being a part of his first steps and all the other things. And we're going to show some pictures of you and your family in the video. But I want you to talk about God's redemptive plan for you and how that gives you hope for others. With all the stuff that you've been through, the mistakes that you've made, how God still loves you. You know, we see Luke 15, the prodigal son, and how he had to come to that point of origin, that place where he was, and really face the facts of how he had lost his inheritance, the mistakes that he made, and said, you know, even the servants in my father's house have it better than me. In the pig pen, in the slop, you know what I mean, in his own mess. And that is the point where he could journey home, because he knew where home was. So let's talk about God's redemptive plan all the way through seeking other religions and other faiths and the martial arts and the drugs, the sexual abuse, the physical abuse, everything. God was still calling you to draw close to Him. So however you want to unpack that, wherever you want to go with that, let's talk about redemption, because to me, it's the most beautiful story of mankind, is God's redemptive plan for us. And no matter the mistakes that we've made, He's still there for us. He still loves us. He's still that Father who kills the fatted calf and is standing there with the robe. He's standing there with the rings, the jewelry, to put us right back in the place where we were, if not better than we've ever been, because now we have the wisdom and the appreciation that we didn't have before we left.
Yeah, I think the word you said there is not so much just the wisdom, but appreciation. I learned throughout the time to appreciate the little things. You know, little things, especially, you know, being incarcerated when they're taken away from you. I love the verse where it says, "Blessed are those who believe and haven't seen." And I couldn't see. I couldn't see not so much Christ, but I couldn't see, period. I was blind. But yet inside I believed. With all my heart I believed. I believed I was in a chain. I believed I was in a stop. I believed, in the calling. I believed that I was called to be great. I believed that that I am a good husband and a great father. And it came down to choices. When in Deuteronomy it says, choose today, as heaven and earth as your witness, life or death. I choose life. And it says, choose today as heaven and earth as your witness, blessings or curses. I choose the blessings. And then yet it's like an open book test, because he gives you the answer right after that verse. He says, choose life and choose to be blessed. But yet I was choosing death, and I chose to be cursed every time I put that poison in my body. But yet inside I believed, and all that word throughout my whole life, the seeds that were put in me, the only time that I truly can see God's grace in my life was in my brokenness. Every time I was in the pigs, in that stall. I don't believe the prodigal son was in that stall one time, because he says he asked to be fed. And when he asked to be fed, even the food of the pigs, they denied him. He went through that process. He started to feed these animals in order for him to feed himself. So every time I went into that pig pen, that's when I started to see God's grace and mercy, because I was at the lowest point in my life, and then I would have a moment of reflection. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm.
Every time I went into a crack house, at some point in that place, I wanted to come home.
I believe that anytime something's going to happen, God warns us. But we turn away from the warning, which is His grace, His love reaching out to us. I've turned away from that and made mistakes over and over and over again. I one of my darkest hours, having lost a lot of money that I had invested because I took my eye off the ball. But it was my family's money. It was God's money. It didn't belong to me.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And I remember sitting on the edge of a bed close to midnight and sitting there by myself and pinching myself like, man, this has got to be a dream. I got to wake up from this, because this has become a nightmare. And I knew at that point, my version of losing everything I feared, it came to pass. I had been in denial, but like you said, the crucible doesn't allow you to deny it anymore.
No,
And so we have to sit here as men who have failed, right?
Yeah.
But having not only a feeling of called to greatness and a sense of purpose, and God seeing us through the crucibles and the failures and the borrowed time and everything else that we've been through, we have to give still a message of hope that will resonate to whoever God will give us the grace to share this video with, because it's important. We live in a world today that's really driven by media. And so now we're trying to use media for something good.
Yeah.
Where media is the tail's wagging the dog.
Absolutely.
But, so for me, and then I'll let you finish this, redemption is not the most beautiful story. It really is the only story. Right? Because God creates man, and man makes a mistake and falls and doesn't accept responsibility for the condition that he finds himself in. Because the first thing Adam says is, this woman you gave me. Where he could have accepted responsibility and said, I didn't do what you said, I messed up. Redeem me. Whatever price has to be paid, help me. Right? So he doesn't. And we all suffered because we didn't accept responsibility for the things that we were doing. Now that doesn't mean that we weren't victimized. We were. I remember as a small child calling up for my mom. Not only did she not come, but I remember my dad hitting me with a belt just because I called for my mother. And all the other things, I remember him yanking a TV out of the wall and chopping up with an axe. That was my father. And it just dawned on me the last couple of days, all the years of banging heavy weights, carrying extra weight, getting big, strong, the martial art. You know what all that stuff was for? It's for a fight with my dad that never came.
Mm.
I got bigger, stronger. I knew he wasn't going to be able to beat me. But I was still banging heavy weight after he died. You know what I mean? Because that path I was on, that destructive path, I'm living with a lot of pain and joint pain, stuff like that today. But it's also the emotional baggage that you carry for so many years that weighs you down.
Yeah, it's funny you talk about the pain that weighs you down. I just had a total hip replacement, and I've been in recovery for about 2 weeks, and my leg feels great. And I've lived with that pain for 5 years. And now that I don't have the pain, I look for it. That makes sense.
Your condition.
I'm like, okay, this ain't right. Sometimes redemption isn't right. It's right. It's so right, but yet for some people it's so wrong because they feel like they don't deserve it.
Yeah, there's got to be something else. It can't grace. It can't be something you're just gonna give me.
Yeah.
To pay this price for me.
Exactly. You feel like you owe it to him, or you have to do something to earn it,
and that's that religion.
And that's the religion.
Yeah.
And the biggest thing is, I learned how to forgive me. I learned to love me, because if he loves me with all my flaws and all my defects and all my imperfections, and he can accept me and call me the apple of his eye, you know what? I believe it. I trust him. He's the author and the finisher of my life. He said, if you don't get chastised, you're an illegitimate son, but the son that he loved, he chastised. So God had to correct me, and the victory in the Bible talks about, one of the kings says, and how we're going to get the victory. Where do we go? And he said, we got to go through the wilderness. And I've been through the wilderness a few times. I mean, I've fought in many arenas, but the hardest fight of my life has been life. He says in his word, he says, in this world you will be afflicted, but be of good cheer. I have overcome that. And these are things I started I had to believe. I had to reactivate them in my life. And it was there in that one-on-one time with him in prison. I felt more free in prison than I have in the streets, and that's sad to say. But I see more people in prison in the free world, mentally, physically, spiritually, emotionally. And in that point of my life, in that brokenness, in that loneliness, I believed. He said, in the present time, you might not like what you're going through, but afterwards, he said, you can rejoice. So there was some things I went through that I didn't like, I don't even believe it was in his will for me to go through. But as stubborn people, that's why they consider us sheep, because sheep are stubborn and like to go astray. Man, yet in that time, I'm that one out of the 99 who got lost. His rod and his staff comforted me. He was always there. And when I stopped at that pigsty and that pig pen and all that slop, and I had that moment to reflect and realize, man, how good God is. That's when I started to accept redemption, because it's for everybody. And it's free. There's nothing we can do for it.
Before we talk about that walk home, I want to go back to something you said that was powerful a minute ago. And that is, God has already overcome the world. God has already overcome your sexual abuse. God has already overcome your addiction. God has already overcome your verbal abuse. And the same thing for me, not having the father that I necessarily wanted, right? But I had the father I had. I'm thankful that he gave me life. But at the same time, it was a hard life, to the point, I hid from my father physically. I'd hide from him, right?
Absolutely.
To the point where I had a peptic ulcer, gained a lot of weight. I had other problems physically, but God has overcome those things. And I remember going to my dad's gravesite and saying what I had to say, forgiving him, but also telling, saying it like it was. He wasn't a good father, no stretch of the imagination. But God had overcame those things so that I could through him live another life that he had already put in my DNA. You follow what I'm saying?
Yeah,
I already had the
absolutely.
capability to live those things, but it was through him and through Christ where freedom came along and allowed me another choice
Yeah.
again. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So we're in the pig pen, but now there's a Father who's waiting for us, right? Who loves us.
Oh man.
Now, we know where we are. We know the facts. You owed a lot of people money, the drugs, the alcohol. But God, through prison, that crucible, that was your walk home. And now you're back with your family.
Yeah.
And I am doing much better than some other points in my life. I will say that. And I've walked through my crucibles when I'm being divorced. And the situation with my son, which I won't get into in this discussion, but the point is, we're back where we should be. Discussion has been a long time coming, especially be able to put it on video, hopefully get it edited down and put it up on YouTube. Just to say, God, we love you, right? You've redeemed us. You've called us. You've equipped us. You've helped us forgive ourselves. Not looking at life through a religious way or a worldview, because like I said earlier, until you can let go and divorce yourself of all that, not just the material things, and I'm not saying it's wrong to have material things. I like nice things. You know, I have a nice truck,
Yeah.
but I don't wear a lot of jewelry and godly stuff. I have what I need for the journey. But the point is, God has put me in a place to where I can choose again. Now, what am I going to choose this day?
That's awesome. That's the word.
You know what I'm saying? Because none of that stuff matters to me anymore.
Yes. Yeah.
None of it.
You know, I love that word, you know, choose, because you do have a choice. You do have a choice whether you're going to put a needle in your arm, you know, or drink have another drink.
Yeah, but they don't have to.
But they don't have to.
Yeah.
The problem with it is that not only is it a spiritual addiction, but it becomes a physical addiction. I was so religious, I thought I could pray it away,
No.
but the effect on me physically
Mhm.
was something I didn't have no idea about.
Mhm.
I couldn't fight that on my own. So by God's grace, I went into a program and I had, you know, some wonderful counselors that guided me.
And you had to get help in prison
Yeah.
and realize that not everything you were going through was just a spiritual situation, but you had to learn about addiction.
Right, absolutely.
Can you take 2 or 3 minutes and talk about that for a minute?
Ooh.
What you learned in prison about addiction?
I
The
think so.
mental, the physical.
Yeah, I think so much more of it was people focus on the cause of addiction. And in the program I was called the Reality House, the director, Mr. Williams, Ms. Gale, my counselor, Ms. Evelyn, and Mr. Johnson, helped me focus on the recovery part of the addiction. And they taught me that I'm not a victim to my circumstances, and that to be free I must master my own habits, and to be part of something greater than myself, I have to find the greatest part of myself. And that moved my life, you know, that impacted me so much that I learned that I have to let go of the excuses. I have to be able to choose now, you know, life over death. I learned that I'm the greatest sinner in prison. I learned that, believe it or not, I'm the liar, I'm the thief, I'm the homosexual, I'm the murderer, and I'm the rapist, because Paul said I'm the greatest sinner. You see, these people are incarcerated because of their crime, the sin that they acted out, but it's a sin. There's no greater sin than the other.
Mm-hmm.
You know, some things are horrific in people's eyes, but at the end of the day, I realized I'm that man. I'm wicked as he is. The difference between me and him is he did it. He didn't do it. But now I choose not to do that. He says I'm able to do all things, but not all things edify me.
That's right.
I can do whatever I want.
Not all things are lawful.
But guess what? I know that there's consequences
Yeah.
to my decisions and my choices. And in order for me to be free, I had to master these habits, and I had to learn about what the drugs did to me physically. You know, how it affected my brains, you know, my neurons, my receptor glands, the dopamine, and how, this drug becomes addictive because you become so used to it. The body craves it. It wants it in order for you to live a life where you think you're living normal, because now you have no reasoning and no intellect. That's the part of the brain that the drug conquers and takes over. So I lived a life full of emotions. So if I was angry, I got high. If I was scared, I got high. If I was upset, I got high. If I had a bill in the mail, I got high. If the Colts won, I drank. And if they lost, I drank. If it was the dog's birthday, I drank. It was so crazy, because now I'm living a life just driven by my emotions. And I think it was driven more because in my subconscious, I was still angry. I was bitter. I had pain. Not just physically, but pain from my past. When I came back to pastor the church, I was shunned. I was pushed away. And that's when I said I wiped my hands from the church. I was looking for my Aaron and my Ur to raise my hands like Moses, and to help me through this battle. But it didn't happen. I hurt a lot of people, and I had to accept that. I had to accept some things that my wife, said to me. She had to vent. And it was in prison, in that brokenness, that, I was able to say, I need help. And by God's grace, I got accepted to this program. I didn't go to work release, which I wanted. So I was like, you know what? There got to be a plan B. And there is no plan B with God. We spoke about God's standards. There's no room for mixed standards with him.
Yeah.
So when I had to live up to his standards, I started living one day at a time. That's why the word says, don't worry about tomorrow, brings its own problems. And don't worry about the past. I'm doing a new thing. Don't even bring the ancient things to mind. So I started learning how to live one day at a time in that situation.
Making the right choices.
And making the right choices. I had to be faithful in the little things, like the piece of chicken.
Mm-hmm.
I wouldn't even take a safety pin because it's not mine. I was so convicted, and to that point that I just I chose to live what the life that God has prepared for me. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm.
I love myself, my identity, not the one that other people perceived of me.
Yes.
Does that mean
Oh,
I love
absolutely.
me as an individual?
Yes, you had to find out who you
Yeah.
were and who God was to you.
For the
And
first
who
time.
you were to God.
For the first time in many years, I love myself.
So, in this final minutes, give me your message to the world, message to those kids, the young adults, even people our age who are still struggling, trying to find a way home, trying to find a way not just back to God, but trying to find meaning and purpose in life. To need hope, to have faith.
Yeah.
And you gotta have faith in order to believe and to act upon what you believe.
Without faith, it's impossible to please God.
Yeah.
You have to believe that you were meant to be better. Not even better, you were meant for greater things. You have to believe that you have a purpose. Unfortunately, sometimes our upbringing doesn't offer that, doesn't teach us that. But deep down inside, everybody wants to do good.
Yeah.
But
They know.
the norm is to do bad. And you have to go through that situation, and you can't take shortcuts. You have to accept responsibility, for your behaviors, your actions, and you have to want to come to a point in your life where you want change. When I finally accepted that this is not who I'm meant to be, I want to change, I cried out to God. They teach you, to your higher power, as you understand them. There's no greater higher power than the creator of heaven and earth, the master of the universe. And I can tell you for a fact, when I cried out to him, he listened. And it's in that brokenness, and it's in that loneliness, and it's in that point of your life, in that pain, that when you cry out to God, he's going to listen. If you're willing to try everything else, you're willing to get high, sleep around, and drink, just give him a try. What do you got to lose? Give him a try. And you know what? I've given him a try over and over again, and he's never let me down. I was always the one who turned my back on him. And the beauty about serving him is that every time I came back to him, he welcomed me with open arms. And that's amazing, because I don't deserve it, but it's the truth. That's the gospel.
It's amazing grace.
Yeah.
So let's finish up. I want to say a few things about you to wrap up this. We've been talking for almost an hour and a half, almost 2 hours. So first I want to affirm you and say that I'm thankful that you've come through the crucible and come to the other side. I'm thankful that you have accepted responsibility for your life and accepted responsibility as a father to your son and as a husband to your wife. And that no matter what you've been through, you have it within you to truly redeem yourself. God's redemption is the larger picture, but we have a role to play in that. Like you said, by making the right choices and to redeem ourselves, even to redeem the time, the Bible says, for the days are evil, to take responsibility and make something out of it. I want to thank you. You've been like a brother to me.
You are my brother.
I want to also keep it real and say, you going to prison hurt.
Yeah.
It really did. And I'm sorry they didn't get a chance. They didn't allow us to see each other when you were locked up. But maybe it was God's will for it to be that way. But no matter what, I'm very proud of you.
Thank you.
I think you got great things in the future. You're not only a barber, but an artist.
Thank you.
And a good carpenter. But now I can look at you for sure and say you're a good man.
Thank you so much.
I heard Archie Manning say something to his two sons one time. I think it was Peyton Manning had come to him and said, well, Dad, me and my brother have won Super Bowls, so forth and so on. What would be you to tell me basically about life or what you want for us? And I remember, I don't know if it was 30 for 30 or one of those ESPN shows, that Archie Manning, his father, said just to be a good man. At the end of the day, a lot of these things will pass away and won't matter. How you love your son will matter. How you love your wife will matter. How you represent yourself in the community and what you choose to do for others that's larger than yourself, those are the things that matter. And I'm thankful to say that you've become that man, I think, that can do those things. We could talk about this all day.
Yeah.
And so I'm thankful that you shared your time with us.
Thank you.
We'll do many other videos and stuff together because I think our message is important and what we want to share with the world. But I want to affirm you and thank you for sharing this part of your journey and saying that redeem yourself, brother, because you got some great things ahead.
Absolutely.
And I'll be there to help you
Thank you.
do those great things and share a great message that God has given you.
I appreciate that. That being said, I also want to thank you and say I love you, brother. You've been with me through the good, the bad, and ugly, and even when things looked shady, you stood by my side. You've seen my ups and downs, and for you to stick around says a lot, means a lot. You're just not my friend, you're my brother. And I look forward to do greater things with you. I believe the best is yet to come, and I thank you for this opportunity.
All right.
Amen. God bless you, bro.
Hello again, this is Ayub Fleming, and I wanted to thank you again for watching Living the Max Life 365 with my special guest, Pastor Jesus Anthony Rodriguez. But before you go, I have something special I'd like to share with you. I personally love music, and so I have an original selection by Steve Gray called So Good that I want to share with you. And right after that, I have a poetry reading from I Have Remembered Love, the story from Luke 15, the prodigal son.
Girl, you made me feel so good, so good, so good. You make me feel so good, so good, so good. Ooh, you make me feel so good, yeah. your heart will never say to me. And I know this thing is true. Now just one touch from you does it for me. You make me feel complete when I'm around you, yeah. And it's true, babe. All I need is you in my life, yeah. You make me happy, yeah. 'Cause it's for you I sing this song. You make me feel so good, so good, yeah. So good, baby. So good.
I Have Remembered Love by Ayub Fleming. Excerpt from Winds of Change. The road home is long, but the pain left behind is a haunting memory, calling me back, holding me. I pass by men who I know not, but shared my life with, dying. Don't call to me on my way. I am dead walking toward a distant hope. Calling back the past, still my future. I am going home, back to the place of my birth, but my rights I've lost. Squandered all that you gave so freely in my bondage haste. Let me find a place of rest next to the servants in my Father's house. The stables seem glorious in my sin. Be not angry, Father, I pray thee. The pigs did eat the ring you gave me. Let me lie with the dogs for morsel. I will crouch low, work, and not sleep. Let me return home and find my way. Why do you honor me with this robe? What manner of love slew this calf? Don't be angry, my brother, for my return. Speak slowly to our Father and make low thy heart. I made my bed in hell, but I remembered love.